My name is Sarah, and I want to tell you a story about trust, about healing, and about the moment when a father realized that efficiency can never replace the human heart. This is the story of how I was fired for spending too much time with a patient, not knowing that patient was my boss's daughter, and how my dismissal nearly destroyed the only source of comfort that little girl had left in this world. I've been working as a night nurse in the burn unit for 7 years. It's not an easy job. The smell of antiseptic mixed with healing flesh, the constant beeping of monitors, the muffled cries of pain that pierce through the darkness. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the night they brought her in. Lily Harrison, 9 years old, third-degree burns covering 40% of her body. A house fire that took everything from her mother, her sense of safety, and nearly her life. When I first saw her, she was curled up in that hospital bed like a wounded animal, her small body wrapped in bandages that couldn't hide the trauma written across her face. The burns were healing, slowly, but the wounds in her soul seemed to grow deeper with each passing day. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, wouldn't let anyone touch her. The other nurses tried their best, but Lily would scream whenever anyone approached her bed. She would throw things, pull at her bandages, and curl up in a corner like she was trying to disappear. The doctors were concerned. Physical healing requires cooperation, requires trust, requires the patient to want to get better. But Lily had given up. She had retreated so far into herself that we were losing her, not to her injuries, but to her despair. I watched her for 3 nights, studying her patterns, her fears, her tiny moments of vulnerability. And then, on the 4th night, something changed. I was doing my rounds, checking on patients when I heard it. The softest whisper, barely audible over the hum of the machines. She was calling for her mother. I stopped outside her room and listened. She was asking her mother to kiss her goodnight, to kiss away the pain like she used to do. My heart broke in that moment. This little girl, trapped in her own body, scarred and scared, was still just a child who missed her mother's touch. I knocked gently on the door and entered her room. She immediately tensed up, preparing for another battle with another nurse trying to check her vitals or change her bandages. But I didn't approach her bed. Instead, I sat down in the chair by the window and simply waited. I didn't speak, didn't move, didn't try to force any interaction. I just sat there, letting her know that I was present, that I was safe, that I wasn't going anywhere. After what felt like hours, she spoke. Her voice was so small, so broken. She asked me if I was going to hurt her. I told her no, that I was there to help her feel better, but only if she wanted me to. She asked me about my hands, if they were gentle like her mother's had been. I showed her my hands, kept them open, let her see that I wasn't holding any medical instruments, any needles, any of the things that had become sources of pain in her world. And then, in the most tentative voice, she asked me something that would change both of our lives forever. She asked me if I would kiss her scars goodnight, like her mother used to do. She said her mother told her that kisses had magic in them, that they could take away the hurt and make the bad dreams go away. She said she missed that magic more than anything else in the world. I looked at this precious little girl, so brave and so broken, and I knew that this was more than just a medical situation. This was about human connection, about the power of love to heal wounds that medicine alone could never touch. I asked her if she was sure, if she really wanted me to do that. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and slowly, carefully, she extended her left arm toward me. The scars were still fresh, still pink and raised, covering her forearm like a map of pain. But as I leaned forward and placed the gentlest kiss on each mark, I felt something shift in that room. Her breathing slowed, her muscles relaxed, and for the first time since the accident, Lily smiled. It was the smallest smile, barely there, but it was real. And it was beautiful. That night marked the beginning of our ritual. Every evening before Lily went to sleep, I would sit by her bed and wait for her to show me her scars. Sometimes it was just her arms, sometimes her legs, sometimes the marks on her shoulder that were hidden beneath her hospital gown. Each kiss was a promise, a wordless communication that said she was worthy of love, that her scars didn't make her less beautiful, that someone cared enough to see beyond the damage to the precious child underneath. The ritual became the cornerstone of her recovery. On the nights when I worked, Lily would eat her dinner, take her medication, and cooperate with the other medical staff because she knew that at the end of the day, she would receive those healing kisses that made her feel safe and loved. She started talking more, asking questions about my life, telling me about her dreams, both the nightmares and the hopeful ones. She began to trust again, to believe that not all touch had to be painful, that not all people would hurt her. And you know what? If this story resonates with you, if you believe in the power of compassion in healthcare, please consider subscribing to Hospital Revenge. This channel is dedicated to sharing stories about the heroes who work in hospitals, the patients who inspire us, and the moments that remind us why healthcare is about so much more than just medicine. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who understand that healing happens in the heart as much as in the body. The other nurses noticed the change in Lily. They saw how she would light up when I arrived for my shift, how she would cooperate with treatments during the day because she knew I would be there at night. They saw how her wounds were healing faster, how her nightmares were becoming less frequent, how she was slowly returning to being the little girl she was meant to be. But what they didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Lily's father was watching too. Mr. Harrison was the hospital's chief administrator, a man who lived and breathed efficiency reports and performance metrics. He was the kind of executive who saw the hospital as a business first and a place of healing second. He believed that every minute, every resource, every interaction should be optimized for maximum throughput and minimum cost. He was brilliant at his job, capable of making the tough decisions that kept the hospital running smoothly and profitably. But he was also a man drowning in his own grief. The same fire that had scarred his daughter had taken his wife, and he had thrown himself into his work as a way to avoid confronting the magnitude of his loss. He visited Lily every day, but their interactions were stilted, awkward, filled with the kind of small talk that happens between people who love each other, but don't know how to bridge the gap that trauma has created between them. He had tried to connect with her, had tried to be the father she needed, but every time he looked at her scars, he saw the fire. He saw his failure to protect her, his inability to save his wife, his complete helplessness in the face of forces beyond his control. So he focused on what he could control: schedules, budgets, staff performance, and hospital efficiency ratings. For weeks, Mr. Harrison had been reviewing the night shift reports, looking for ways to improve productivity and reduce costs. He noticed that certain nurses were spending more time with certain patients, and he saw this as a problem to be solved. In his mind, every minute spent beyond the standard care protocol was a minute wasted, a resource inefficiently allocated, a problem that needed to be addressed. When he saw my name consistently appearing in the reports as spending 45 minutes longer than the average nurse in patient rooms, he didn't see dedication or compassion. He saw a performance issue. He didn't investigate why I was spending that extra time or which patients were receiving that additional care. He simply saw the numbers and made a decision based on those numbers alone. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning, right after my shift ended. I was exhausted, having spent the previous 12 hours caring for patients, including my usual time with Lily. I had no idea what the meeting was about, but I assumed it was probably about scheduling changes or new protocols. I certainly never imagined that my commitment to one little girl's emotional healing would be seen as a liability. Mr. Harrison's office was intimidating, filled with charts and graphs and efficiency reports. He sat behind his massive desk, looking every inch the corporate executive, and got straight to the point. He told me that my performance reviews showed consistent inefficiencies in time management. He said that I was spending too much time with individual patients and not adhering to the standard care protocols that ensured equitable treatment for all patients. He showed me a spreadsheet that tracked my activities minute by minute, highlighting the time I spent with Lily as evidence of my failure to optimize my workflow. He explained that the hospital needed nurses who could provide care efficiently and effectively, not nurses who created dependencies with individual patients. He accused me of enabling unhealthy attachment behaviors and interfering with the natural healing process. I tried to explain about Lily, about the breakthrough we had achieved, about the way she had begun to trust again, and how her physical healing had accelerated as a result of her emotional progress. But Mr. Harrison was not interested in qualitative outcomes that couldn't be measured on a spreadsheet. He was interested in quantifiable metrics, in numbers that proved efficiency and productivity. He told me that my emotional investment in individual patients was a luxury that the hospital couldn't afford. He said that if every nurse spent an extra 45 minutes with every patient, the entire system would collapse. He explained that healthcare was a business, and like any business, it required employees who understood the importance of efficiency and cost-effectiveness. And then he said the words that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He said that my services were no longer needed, that my last shift had been my final shift, and that I should pack up my belongings and leave the hospital immediately. He said that he was confident that the other nurses would be able to provide adequate care for all patients, including the ones I had been monopolizing with my inefficient methods. If you're feeling angry right now, if you're thinking about all the times you've seen healthcare workers undervalued and underappreciated, please hit that like button and leave a comment below. Share your own stories about nurses or doctors who went above and beyond, who understood that healing is about more than just following protocols. Your engagement helps this channel reach more people who need to hear these stories. I was devastated. Not for myself, but for Lily. I knew that she would be expecting me that night, would be waiting for our ritual, would be counting on that moment of connection and comfort that had become so essential to her healing process. I tried to explain this to Mr. Harrison, tried to make him understand that this wasn't just about efficiency or protocols, that this was about a traumatized child who had finally found a way to trust again. But he was unmoved. He told me that other nurses would be able to provide the same level of care, that children were resilient, that Lily would adapt to new caregivers just as she had adapted to me. He said that my belief that I was irreplaceable was exactly the kind of ego-driven thinking that made me unsuitable for employment in a professional healthcare environment. I left that office knowing that I had just witnessed a man choose spreadsheets over his own daughter's well-being, even though he had no idea that's what he was doing. I spent the rest of that day trying to figure out how to explain to a 9-year-old girl that the person she trusted most in the world wouldn't be coming back, that the ritual that had become her lifeline was over, that she would have to find a way to feel safe and loved without the kisses that had made her believe in magic again. But I never got the chance to say goodbye. Hospital policy prohibited terminated employees from returning to patient care areas, and Mr. Harrison had made it clear that any attempt to contact patients directly would result in legal action. I was cut off from Lily as abruptly and efficiently as I had been cut off from my job. That night, Lily waited for me. According to the reports I later heard, she refused to go to sleep, insisting that Sarah would be coming soon, that she just needed to wait a little longer. The nurse assigned to cover my patients tried to help her, tried to explain that there had been a schedule change, but Lily didn't understand. She had never been told that people she trusted could simply disappear from her life without warning. As the hours passed and I didn't appear, Lily began to panic. She started calling for me, then screaming for me, then sobbing so hard that she made herself sick. She tore at her bandages, trying to show her scars to anyone who would look, begging them to kiss them goodnight like Sarah did. But the other nurses, despite their compassion and professionalism, couldn't replicate the trust that had taken weeks to build. The night shift became a nightmare. Lily's vital signs spiked, her breathing became erratic, and she began showing signs of severe psychological distress. She refused her medication, wouldn't let anyone touch her, and kept asking the same question over and over. Where is Sarah? Why didn't Sarah come? Did Sarah stop loving me? The nurses tried everything. They offered her extra blankets, her favorite snacks, television shows, anything they could think of to calm her down. But Lily was inconsolable. She had lost her mother in the fire, and now, from her perspective, she had lost me too. The abandonment was triggering memories of the trauma, undoing weeks of progress, and sending her spiraling back into the dark place where she had been when she first arrived. By 3 a.m, Lily was in full crisis mode. She was hyperventilating, her body temperature was rising, and she was pulling at her healing wounds with such force that she was causing new injuries. The medical staff was forced to consider restraints to prevent her from hurting herself, but they knew that being restrained would only traumatize her further. The head nurse, Mrs. Peterson, had been working at the hospital for over 20 years. She had seen countless patients, dealt with every kind of medical emergency, and prided herself on her ability to handle difficult situations. But she had never seen anything like what was happening with Lily that night. This wasn't just a medical crisis. It was a complete psychological breakdown, triggered by the sudden loss of the one person who had made this child feel safe. Mrs. Peterson tried calling the on-call psychiatrist, but there was little that could be done in the middle of the night without risking sedating Lily so heavily that it would interfere with her physical healing. She tried reaching out to social services, but they couldn't provide the kind of immediate emotional support that Lily needed. She even considered calling Lily's father. But she knew that Mr. Harrison's awkward, guilt-ridden attempts at comfort would likely make the situation worse. As dawn approached and Lily's condition continued to deteriorate, Mrs. Peterson made a decision that would change everything. She called Mr. Harrison anyway, not as a courtesy to a family member, but as a desperate plea from one healthcare professional to another. She told him that his daughter was in crisis, that the night had been a disaster, and that they needed to find a way to help her immediately. Mr. Harrison arrived at the hospital still in his pajamas, having thrown on a coat and driven through the empty streets in a panic. When he saw Lily, curled up in a corner of her bed, exhausted from hours of crying, her bandages disheveled and her eyes red and swollen, he felt something crack inside his chest. This was his little girl, his only remaining family, and she was suffering in a way that no spreadsheet could quantify. Mrs. Peterson explained what had happened, how Lily had been waiting for me, how she had asked for the kiss ritual over and over, how she had been inconsolable when I didn't appear. She told him about the trust that had been built, about the breakthrough that had occurred, about the way Lily had been healing both physically and emotionally because of the connection we had shared. And then Mrs. Peterson said something that would haunt Mr. Harrison for the rest of his life. She said, "She keeps asking for Sarah, the nurse who kisses her scars. She says Sarah makes the magic work. I think Sarah was the one you fired yesterday for spending too much time with patients." The realization hit him like a physical blow. The inefficient nurse he had terminated for wasting time with individual patients had been spending that time with his own daughter. The emotional dependency he had criticized as unprofessional had been the lifeline that was pulling Lily back from the brink of despair. The 45 minutes he had seen as a waste of resources had been the most important part of his daughter's healing process. Mr. Harrison stood there in that hospital room watching his daughter suffer and understood for the first time that his obsession with efficiency had cost him something irreplaceable. He had destroyed the one relationship that was helping his daughter heal, and he had done it without even knowing what he was destroying. He had chosen numbers over humanity, metrics over meaning, and his own daughter had paid the price. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and called me. It was 6 a.m, and I was at home, still in my scrubs, still trying to process what had happened. When I saw the hospital number on my caller ID, I hoped for just a moment that maybe they had realized their mistake, that maybe they were calling to ask me to come back. But when I heard Mr. Harrison's voice, broken and desperate, I knew that something terrible had happened. He told me about Lily's night, about her breakdown, about the way she had asked for me over and over. He told me that he hadn't known, that he had made a terrible mistake, that he needed me to come back and help his daughter. I listened to this man, this executive who had so coldly dismissed me just 24 hours earlier, as he begged me to return. He offered me my job back, offered me a raise, offered me whatever I wanted if I would just come back and help Lily. But I wasn't interested in his offers. I was interested in something else entirely. I told him that I would come back, but only on one condition. I told him that he would have to watch the ritual, that he would have to see what real healing looked like, that he would have to understand what he had nearly destroyed. I told him that if he wanted me to help his daughter, he would have to witness the power of the connection he had dismissed as inefficient. He agreed immediately, desperately, willing to accept any terms if it meant helping Lily. I drove back to the hospital, my heart breaking for the little girl who had spent the night wondering why I had abandoned her. I walked into that familiar burn unit, past the nurse's station where my colleagues looked at me with surprise and relief, and straight to Lily's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling with the hollow expression of someone who had given up hope, but when she saw me in the doorway, her entire face transformed. She sat up in her bed, her eyes wide with disbelief and joy, and whispered my name like a prayer. I went to her immediately, gathering her carefully into my arms, mindful of her healing wounds, but desperate to let her know that I was real, that I was there, that I hadn't abandoned her. Through her tears, she asked me where I had been, why I hadn't come the night before, if I was going to leave her again. I told her that I had been away, but that I was back now, and that I would never leave her again without saying goodbye. I told her that some grown-ups had made a mistake, but that mistakes could be fixed, and that everything was going to be okay. Mr. Harrison stood in the doorway, watching this reunion, seeing his daughter's transformation from despair to hope in the space of a single moment. He saw the way she trusted me, the way she relaxed in my presence, the way she believed that everything would be all right now that I was back. And he began to understand, for the first time, what love looked like when it wasn't filtered through efficiency reports and performance metrics. I settled into my familiar chair beside Lily's bed, and she looked at me with those big, hopeful eyes. She asked me in the smallest voice if we could do our ritual, if I would kiss her scars goodnight even though it was morning, because she had missed it so much, and she needed to feel safe again. I told her of course we could, that we would always have our ritual, that it was one of the most important things in the world. Lily slowly, carefully, extended her left arm toward me, just as she had done that very first night. Her scars were healing beautifully, the angry red marks fading to pink lines that told the story of her survival. I leaned forward and placed the gentlest kiss on each mark, feeling her body relax with each touch, seeing her breathing slow and her muscles release the tension they had been holding all night. From the doorway, Mr. Harrison watched his daughter receive the love and comfort that he had never been able to give her. He saw the way she trusted me, the way she felt safe with me, the way she believed in the magic of kisses that could take away pain and fear. He saw the healing that was happening, not just in her body, but in her soul. And he understood that this was what medicine was supposed to look like. As I kissed the last scar on Lily's arm, she sighed contentedly and settled back into her pillows. She asked me to stay until she fell asleep, to make sure that the bad dreams didn't come back, to be there when she woke up. I promised her that I would, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Mr. Harrison stepped quietly into the room, approaching his daughter's bed with a humility I had never seen in him before. He looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, and then he looked at me. There were tears in his eyes as he whispered, "Thank you." I didn't know. I didn't understand. I looked at this man, this father who had been so focused on running a hospital that he had forgotten how to heal his own daughter, and I felt something shift between us. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This wasn't about proving a point or teaching a lesson. This was about a family learning to heal together, about a father discovering that the most important metrics can't be measured on a spreadsheet. He asked me if I would stay, if I would continue to work with Lily, if I would help him understand what she needed. He asked me to teach him how to be the father she deserved, how to see past the scars to the beautiful, brave little girl underneath. He asked me to forgive him for not knowing that love and healing sometimes take longer than efficiency reports allow. I told him that I would stay, not because he was my boss, but because Lily needed me. I told him that healing happens on its own timeline, that trust can't be rushed, that sometimes the most important work we do can't be measured in minutes or productivity reports. I told him that his daughter was the bravest person I had ever met, and that she deserved a father who could see her courage instead of just her scars. In the weeks that followed, Mr. Harrison began to change. He started spending real time with Lily, not just the obligatory visits of a guilty father, but genuine moments of connection. He asked me to teach him about her fears, her dreams, her healing process. He learned to see the hospital through different eyes, to understand that behind every efficiency report was a human being with a story, with needs that went beyond medical protocols. He implemented new policies that recognized the importance of emotional care alongside physical treatment. He hired additional staff so that nurses could spend more time with patients who needed extra support. He created programs that acknowledged the reality that healing involves the heart as much as the body, that trust and compassion are as important as medication and procedures. But most importantly, he learned to be present with his daughter. He learned to sit quietly by her bed, to listen to her stories, to see her strength instead of her scars. He learned that the magic she had talked about wasn't just in my kisses, but in any moment when someone chooses to see past the surface to the beautiful soul underneath. Lily's physical recovery progressed beautifully, but her emotional healing was even more remarkable. She began to trust other people again, to believe that the world could be safe, that she could be loved exactly as she was. She started talking about her future, about the things she wanted to do when she got out of the hospital, about the ways she wanted to help other children who had been hurt. She also began to understand that her father loved her, that his inability to connect with her hadn't been about her scars or her trauma, but about his own grief and fear. She started to see that adults make mistakes too, that sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who have the hardest time showing it, that healing is something that happens for entire families, not just individual patients. Our ritual continued, but it evolved. Sometimes her father would sit quietly in the corner, learning what comfort looked like. Sometimes Lily would ask him to kiss her scars too, teaching him that love wasn't afraid of imperfection. Sometimes she would tell us both stories about her dreams, about the future she was building in her imagination, about the ways she planned to spread the magic of healing kisses to other children who needed them. The night before Lily was finally discharged from the hospital, she asked me to do our ritual one more time. But this time, she had a request. She asked me to teach her father how to do it, so that when she got scared at home, when the nightmares came back, when she needed to feel safe and loved, he would know how to help her. I watched Mr. Harrison learn to kiss his daughter's scars with the same gentleness I had shown her, saw him understand that her marks were not symbols of damage, but evidence of survival. I saw him tell her that she was beautiful, that she was brave, that she was loved exactly as she was. I saw a father finally learn how to heal his daughter's heart. As I watched this transformation, I realized that this story wasn't really about revenge at all. It was about redemption, about the power of love to heal wounds that go deeper than skin, about the way that caring for others teaches us how to care for ourselves. It was about a father learning that the most important work he could do couldn't be measured in efficiency reports, and a daughter learning that she was worthy of love regardless of her scars. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of compassion to heal, if you think that love is the most important medicine we can offer, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Hospital Revenge for more stories about the heroes who work in healthcare, the patients who inspire us, and the moments that remind us what really matters. And please, leave a comment below telling us about a time when someone showed you kindness that changed your life, or when you were able to offer that kind of healing to someone else. The real revenge wasn't in being fired or being called back. The real revenge was in showing a man who had forgotten how to love that his daughter had never stopped deserving it. The real revenge was in proving that the most important things in life, the things that actually matter, can never be measured on a spreadsheet. The real revenge was in teaching a father that healing happens in the heart, and that sometimes the most efficient thing you can do is take all the time in the world to love someone exactly as they are. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I learned that the best revenge isn't getting even. The best revenge is creating a world where love wins, where healing happens, where children learn that their scars are just proof of how strong they are, and where fathers learn that the most important job they'll ever have can't be optimized, only cherished.